Thank you for that. Be good there, Guru. Thank you so much for that gracious intro. I thought it would be easier being up here a second time. It's not much easier, to be honest. But anyway, set the bar high. So when Stan announced our new series on authority, the first thing that popped into my mind was identity. The reason this connection was made immediately is that I myself have struggled and wrestled with this topic and who I am. So this topic is personal to me. It's not only a path I've walked, but a mountain I have climbed and fought my way to the top of, only to be knocked back down again. Our identity is one of, if not the biggest cornerstone of our authority. All our authority, whether biblical or not, is built on the foundation of our identity. A great example I heard recently was of a policeman. How can you expect a policeman to fulfill the responsibilities they have as a policeman if they do not know they are a policeman? How can you expect a policeman to stop traffic if they do not know they have the authority to do so? Therefore, I believe that if we as Christians do not know our identity, we cannot exercise our authority. If we do not know who we are, we will not know how to use the authority given to us to further His kingdom. I wish I could end my preach here. However, this is something that is far easier said than done. Identity has become something that is shrouded in mystery and fog. There are so many schools of thought out there as to where our identity comes from. Identity has almost become a topic that has been swept under the rug in many churches, as it is easy to cause offense. So there's my warning. I may offend some of you tonight, but no, that is not my intention. For me, the wrestle with myself to find out who I am began when I went to university, where, to be honest, I had far too much time on my hands and not much guidance. I was constantly mulling over the latest news and dealing with friends who were claiming they had finally discovered their true identity. This often came with many questions, such as, who did they like? Was it a man, woman, both, or something else? What did they identify as? Were they a man, a woman, non-binary, or something else? These were some of the questions that were commonly thrown around. And people expected you to have an answer for yourself. Not only that, but if you considered yourself to be normal, you were shamed and made to feel guilty for it. It all came to a head when a close friend of mine came out as gay. I was asked, do I still accept him as a friend? Then the wheels really started turning. What am I supposed to say? If I do say something, how do I back it up? Can I deal with the consequences of a potentially controversial opinion? An opinion that went against the grain of what society has deemed as correct. I replied to him with a poker face and a non-confrontational and ambiguous statement that could be taken either way. He seemed to buy it and believe what he wanted to. But behind the scenes, my brain was doing somersaults and backflips, trying to understand what I truly believed. I not only wanted to find the truth, I needed to find the truth. I was beginning to realize that the identity the world says we have might not be our identity. Red flags started going up, and deep down, a yearning to find the answer to this burning question started. The world was telling me something, and what I later came to realize was the Holy Spirit was telling me this was wrong. So I turned to my source of all wisdom, my parents, which worked for a while, until my inner curious 6-year-old kicked in and I started asking why after every carefully crafted answer. Eventually, they had to turn to me and say, I don't know. My parents then referred me to a source with a bit more wisdom on the topic. Drew Land, a pastor at Glenridge. He started giving me the answers I was truly looking for. Drew sat me down and started explaining an overview of the sources of our identity and how the world elevates some and undermines others, while the Bible has a different view on our identity. He recommended a book called Love Thy Body by Nancy Pearcey. This book goes into great detail about how the world got to its current stance on identity and how the Christian view differs and why. For those of us who want the book is too long and I don't want to read it type summary, it comes down to telling us that our identity comes from two places, our body and our mind. Our body defines many of our physical attributes, our race, ethnicity, gender, and so on. Our mind encapsulates our emotions, experiences, morals, beliefs, and so on. The book also goes into great detail about how the world defines our identity and how the Bible defines our identity. The world says our body is irrelevant and our mind is the only thing that is of any substance. This leads to movements such as LGBT and more specifically transgenderism. The world says the mind rules the body. The body must conform to the whims of the mind. We can be whoever or whatever we want to be. This separation of mind and body, and particularly mind above body, leads to many issues, not just confusing us with questions about who we are. However, the Bible tells us that our body and our minds are crucial to discovering who we are. This is something that we are told right at the beginning in Genesis chapter 1, verse 27. So God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. In this verse, the Bible is being extremely intentional in telling us that God made us in his image. Therefore, our bodies are well crafted and to be respected. Not only does this verse tell us this, but it also tells us there are two genders. Another verse that highlights the importance of our body is 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verses 19 to 20. Do you not know that your bodies are temples of the Holy Spirit, who is in you, whom you have received from God? You are not your own. You were bought at a price. Therefore, honor God with your bodies. And in Romans chapter 12, verses 1 and 2, we are told that the mind and the body are crucial to our identity, on which our authority sits. This further affects us in order to be enabled to carry out his will. Therefore, I urge you, brothers and sisters, in the view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. Once again, this is far easier said than done. We as Christians live in a world, and it is just natural for us to be tempted. However, we must remain true to His word and His teachings. Josh, if I could ask you to come up and just quickly build this Jenga tower. I thought I'd choose Josh. He's a civil engineer. Studied 4 years just to build this Jenga tower. So if he fails, the pressure's on here. Yeah, I think on the stage is probably best, yeah. Yeah. There we go, Paul, just for you. Our identity can be represented by a tower of Jenga blocks. And the authority given to us by Jesus can be represented by my Bible. When our identity is whole, we can easily support the weight of the authority and the responsibilities that we have been given. This is due to the fact that when we have an identity based on His words and teachings, we have the help and support needed to see His will be actioned here on earth. However, if we start to take away the pieces of our identity, such as saying our body is irrelevant, or letting the devil undermine certain aspects of our identity, it becomes weaker and less stable. This can be daunting. It's a daunting realization, granted. Our identity needs to be strong before we can see the outworkings of God's will and expansion of His kingdom. I hope nobody agreed with that statement, because it's entirely false. This is entirely false, friends. This is another ploy of the evil one. In Matthew chapter 11, verses 28 to 30, we are told, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." Everyone is welcome to come as they are, for Jesus will give you rest. Jesus will give you strength. At no point are we told that we must be perfect to have the authority of God on us, for Jesus won that victory for us on the cross. Now, I hope I don't knock it over myself after chirping Josh. Just as our identity is a complex structure of experiences, morals, and friendships, imagine each block in this tower represents different pieces of our identity. The devil may poke and prod at our tower, but he cannot remove the pieces. Only we can. The devil can only tempt us. He may tempt us to remove pieces because of a whole host of reasons. Whether we remove pieces because of us being raised by a single parent, or because you have been through a divorce. Whether you are unemployed or have just lost your job. Whether you have just lost someone near and dear to you, or whether you have been told and believed that you need to achieve certain things to be worthy. None of this matters in the eyes of the Lord. Through Him, we can be made whole again. Through Jesus, we have been given the authority to push the pieces that have been removed back into place. Through Jesus, pieces that we once thought were lost can be restored and put back into place. We are told time and time again that the devil has no power over us because through Jesus we have the protection of the Lord. For instance, in Ephesians chapter 6, verses 10 to 12, "Finally, be strong in the Lord and in His mighty power. Put on the full armor of God so that you can take your stand against the devil's schemes. For our struggle is not against the flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. And again, in Luke chapter 10, verse 19, I have given you the authority to trample on snakes and scorpions, and to overcome all the power of the enemy. Nothing will harm you. So in closing, don't be tempted by who the world tells you you are. For the Lord knows who you are. He made you. He knew you before anyone in heaven or on earth. Parents, be aware of these struggles that your children may be going through. The world can be persuasive. I know this. I've been there. I hope that we all leave here tonight with the knowledge and the faith that when we walk out of these doors, we are not just mere people of this world, but we are sons and daughters of the Lord Most High. We have the responsibility to tell the people around us that they can be too. We have the authority to take claim over everywhere we go to further God's kingdom. It doesn't matter how we got here. It doesn't matter what terrible things we've done or seen in our pasts. What matters is that we truly understand that we are sons and daughters of God. And when we let that become the foundation of our identity, and when that happens, you will see God's power begin to change you from the inside out. Thank you.